Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus coming at you with another video tonight, still here in very cold Osaka, Japan. It's been a delayed spring. It should be getting warmer, but we're still seeing below freezing temperatures at night. It's a bit annoying. So, as I like to point out, this is a channel about supernatural subjects, complex metaphysical subjects, and overlying theme of life after death and the consequences of that subject. And something that's been on my mind concerns the fear of death, which can be a crippling fear that for some of us lasts our whole lives, and certainly nobody, I think, is completely without fear of that subject. In fact, it's an existential crisis that every single person is faced with, and because it is so ubiquitous, affects everybody. That's why I got into this work, because I feel like not enough is being done to tackle this problem. And so, as it turned out, when I began investigating the subject of an afterlife, it turned out there was very, very high probability that when we die, our consciousness does continue in what appears to be other dimensions that can be startlingly similar to this world. Now, that was quite a discovery, but I wasn't completely sure until I began having my own experiences back around 2014 to verify these concepts that I had spent so much of my life investigating. So this opened up a whole new paradigm for me. Real quick, before I continue too much further with this, I want to mention to please hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. We're kind of a micro channel, a little niche audience, but we have a big group on Facebook, and I have books out, and this channel is just a way to connect with people who read my books, and to hopefully get some ideas out to the masses. But I need your help to subscribe. If nobody subscribes, then the channel doesn't go anywhere, and it's easy to do. Just hit that red button. To continue. So the subject of the fear of death has been on my mind lately because of certain posts that people make in the community, certain ideas that I hear sometimes, and how this is an underlying factor behind many people seeking answers for this, again, existential crisis that we all have to deal with. And for some people, it's continually happening. Now, if you ask mainstream psychologists, the solution is to medicate it away. The solution is not to think about it or, quote, focus on the moment, focus on life, not death, which sounds like good advice, but it's also, for many of us, a kind of hollow advice, because avoiding something and not focusing on something does not make that something go away. That seems to be logic 101. So instead, understanding something is the best way to tackle it. Hence the name of my first book, which is Understanding Life After Death. That's the best defense, a bit like the best defense is a good offense. So become aggressive, study the literature, study the books. But that aside, the real point I want to bring up tonight is how the fear of death is an unnatural thing. And I say this because in context of the afterlife, that is to say, multidimensional existence is a very normal part of physics and part of nature. And so that's the way real life seems to actually be. So this idea that we die and then cease to exist is in fact a very bizarre and unnatural narrative that has been invented by our lovely blue planet out here in this part of the galaxy. So we invented this narrative, and now everybody is dealing with the consequences of that narrative, despite the fact it doesn't hold water with actual evidence. And so, as a result of that, you have this phenomenon where people are trying to grapple with something that by all means doesn't feel natural, it doesn't make sense. How do you process non-existence? How can we fathom that our personalities, our souls, our characteristics are this temporary mechanical thing, an illusion created by mechanics and biology? So at its core, I believe that this creates this feeling that something isn't right. And this is where the existential crisis happens, because we know in our hearts, on like kind of like on the intuitive level, we know it's not right, but we're trying to process something that it's like on the inside we know it's wrong. So our mind, the logical mind, is trying to convince itself continually that this is how it is, we just have to accept it, this is what happens when we die. But our intuitive self is grappling with this, and this, I think, creates severe anxiety because it doesn't make any sense. Right, it's trying to accept something that goes against what are likely the laws of nature that can't be denied, can't be changed. But we're trying to force that to bend to this idea that just won't fit. So for many people it is such a just a incomprehensible thought that it'll create perpetual anxiety because many people have no knowledge of supernatural subjects, or they're brainwashed into believing that none of it is real and that the evidence that exists is not really evidence. And this is the majority of people. And so when this happens, they're left kind of like alone in the woods. So they have no answers. There's no way to find answers. There's no way to find solutions. And when they go and attempt to look for solutions, what happens is they end up digging the hole deeper. So while what they should be doing is finding a way to climb out, when they start asking the materialists and the academics and the pseudo supernatural authors, seeking answers from people who deny near-death experiences and after-death contact and all the subjects we talk about here, then all they're doing is digging that existential crisis deeper, trying to find ways to make an afterlife work without it being actually an afterlife. And it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. And you can't escape from it because it's going to happen and you're going to die. Because we're all going to die. And then you start having these thoughts which just it's like they replicate. So you begin thinking, like maybe you'll be looking on your Facebook and thinking, my friend is going to die, this friend is going to die, this family member is going to die, this person's going to die, this person's going to die. And it just starts to just overwhelm you. And again, there's no direction, there's no way to rectify it. So what do? We work. We indulge in things, alcohol or pornography, and we try to get our minds off it. But how long will that last? So it's no coincidence that the average person who watches this channel is above 60 years old, because that's the age when escaping the subject won't work anymore, and it's time to begin looking for answers. It's also why this channel is kind of small, because that's not a common age demographic on YouTube. But 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, people in my age category are not interested in this because they're still in that mode of thought of trying to just distract oneself from the idea. Although surprisingly many people are very open to these subjects and looking or desperate for answers, because we're all in on this together. We're all struggling with this mortality concept. And believe me, without having access to knowledge, without me having had my own experiences with the other side, with communicating with deceased people, I'd be lost in the woods also. I'd be suffering the same existential crises, and I wouldn't be able to wrap my mind around it, even if I were able to accept 70 or 80% of the information. So that's why I do what I do, and excuse me, I think that ultimately the advice I have for people who are struggling with this and struggling with the existential crisis is to recognize that the fear you have is so bad because it's unnatural. So you're trying to comprehend something that you know intuitively doesn't make any sense. And this creates that anxiety, because non-existence, there can be no such thing as non-existence. Life is eternal, and existence is life. These are not separate things. There's not an unconscious dead universe, and then life is a byproduct that just kind of pokes in and out of this like bigger, sort of vast, dead, mindless existence. That is not the way that modern metaphysical and theoretical physics approaches this subject. and it doesn't make sense from a logical, philosophical angle. So we can't fit that mold around our lives because it's not natural. The multidimensional paradigm that we simply, switch between bodies, go to different realms, go to different places, and life is eternal. For me, anyway, it rectifies the existential crisis because logically it just makes sense, and I know it's true. So there isn't that feeling anymore of dread because it's kind of like you finally kind of see the way it all works, and it just makes a lot more sense than trying to comprehend non-existence, which is just a very unnatural concept. So maybe you don't believe in an afterlife, and maybe you're just here perusing ideas, and that's fine. But just recognize that non-existence is not natural, and that's why it feels so weird. And there's alternatives, so just something to think about. And as for when it is your time to die, um, look, the vast majority of people who have near-death experiences say that death is nothing to be afraid of, and the biggest thing they have trouble with is the fact they chose to come back because it was way nicer on that side. So if we just look at the evidence just from that angle, if you talk to people who have actually died, they all say it's just, this thing that we work ourselves up about, it's kind of like, like I was freaked out about going to the dentist and having my two wisdom teeth taken out. And yeah, the recovery phase sucked because I was like eating mashed potatoes for a couple days, but I was dreading the procedure because I'd just be using Novocaine and I thought it was going to be painful. And during the procedure, like I didn't feel a thing. And then after a couple days, I was like, man, why did I work myself up about that? It wasn't anything to have been so concerned with. Well, when you talk to dead people, they say the same thing. So if that's the way it is, if that's how death actually is, then maybe that alone is a good reason to start focusing on your life and not allowing the fear of death to rob you. Just like dreading a medical procedure is going to make like your whole week suck or your whole month suck. We have to find a way around that. We have to find a way not to dread these things and put out some faith, put out some trust, and we are very intelligent beings, and we can find the meaning in things that are hidden away, and we can turn even the negative into something that's positive, and we can ride that wave. And so that's a big skill to learn in life. Maybe even one of the most crucial skills. That's what we all have to work on. Hope this video was of help to you. If you want to get involved in this channel, my work, these are my books, Understanding Life After Death, the Afterlife and Beyond, over at afterlifetopics.com. You can click join the Facebook group and have big discussions. You can support the page by signing up to my classes. They're twice a week, and they're a lot of fun. That's Afterlife University. You can also see the class schedules that we have here for the classes. If you want to debate with people, I have a big list of scientific studies on the debunker page. And yeah, so that's a little bit about the website, and that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the next video.